Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Talking Triathlon, the podcast where we get together every week to, you know what? It's in the title, talk about triathlon. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by my co-host, James Baljimbo, sexiest voice in triathlon. How are you, buddy?
Very well, mate. Very well indeed. Little fatigued. Did a lot of traveling the last couple of days, but you know, you can't complain when the podcast calls. I'm always here.
It's true,
How are
mate.
you,
They,
man?
they do put up that podcast signal in the sky, and you're sitting on
Yeah,
the
the pod
couch,
signal. It's
and
just a
then you
picture
go,
of your face
correct.
shining in the sky.
And then you just like you go up to your piano, you hit the three random keys, the secret chute opens down, and you slide down into the podcast cave.
Yeah,
Very
I come out of the
Batman-esque,
ceiling
mate.
here and everything's ready.
No, the for people who probably don't care about this, but it's daylight savings Australia. So we switched where traditionally we do this your mornings, my evenings, but we've gone to my morning, your evening. It is 6 a.m. on a Friday. The as we call it down under the podcast hour. It is the time where people love to jump on a podcast. People don't particularly get it, but yes, mate, you have been traveling a lot. I know. You told me before you've done a 21K run, which is good to hear that your old man hip.
Yeah, man. 21K run at the weekend. On the trails, just feeling normal. Little slight discomfort, but nowhere near pain. Able to run. Got my knee drive back. The comeback is real, finally, and I'm going to be going up through the gears, motherfucker.
That was unexpected. No, cool. We have a lot to talk about this week. I don't know if people, I mean, people who listen to this probably don't really follow the sport of triathlon very closely. But there was
No,
a little race that happened in Hawaii over the weekend. We have a new Ironman World Champion, but it has been a week, mate. I sort of got in a bit of trouble on Twitter, a little bit, not too much. With
did
I
you? What
guess
did you do? Oh, I
uh,
saw that. You had a lot of responses. Yeah, yeah, I loved it.
I loved it too. Actually, like I feed on that stuff. We had
You baited it though. That was
big
bait.
time.
You didn't get into trouble for anything. It wasn't like people were coming at you.
I know.
You baited that motherfucker.
I did. And the best part about it is I then put up a follow-up like tweet the next day during the Ironman race. And nobody realized I was being sarcastic. So everyone's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? No, why would they show the age group as the Ironman World Champs? Nobody would want to see that. I think it was Brad Cobb's like, are you okay? Have you been taken? Is this a cry for help? And I was like, no, no. I keep getting told that Ironman racing is in fact all about the age grouper. So this is what they want apparently. But no, that made me laugh. We had the briefly mentioned last week announcement of the Ironman Pro Tour, I guess is what they're calling it, to combat the PTO, that we're going to talk a little bit about this week. But I think we'll talk about Kona a lot as well. But this podcast is Talking Triathlon, the podcast designed to help you follow the professional side of racing, where we discuss what's been happening. If you enjoy it, we are about to record a bonus episode immediately after this one this week. We're going to be giving our unedited thoughts around the Ironman World Championships in Kona. We'll also be talking about my experience at Super League Malibu. I guess some of the, mate, I heard we have so many rumors we'll be discussing on the bonus show. So if you want to hear that,
Yeah, that's
patreon.com,
bonus episode gold, isn't it?
patreon.com/talking triathlon. I think it's $5 a month. You get access to the Facebook group, WhatsApp group, all that good stuff. But we will talk about that later, Jimbo. Let's get straight into it now. Do you want to talk about Nice first, or do you want? I think we talk about the Ironman announcement a bit when we come to Nice.
I don't
Kona.
think we need to
Got to
talk about
stop doing
Nice
that.
at all, to be
I've got to
honest, mate.
stop doing that. I keep doing it. It's like a weird Freudian slip. I think it took me so long to stop saying Kona and start saying Nice that now I'm struggling to say Kona. It's like my body is like, don't you say Kona. It's not in Kona. It's like, no, it is.
Let's talk about the Pro Series first, because
Let's do
that's
it.
going to be something we'll get into that, our thoughts on that, and then we'll talk about the results, because that's really the meat, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So let's do it. We touched on it last week briefly, where Ironman have come out and they have announced a series of races. I believe it's 17 or 18 events around the world, 8 Ironman races, including Kona. So 7 other Ironman races. And then, was it 9 or 10, 70.3 races that will make up their Pro Series, with an end of year bonus of $200,000 for the first ranked athlete that then goes down to 10th. And then from 10th to 50th, it's a $5,000 bonus. Points are based on times. So I think the winner at most races, it's 5,000 points for an Ironman, 3,500 points for a 70.3. And then you lose a point per second you are behind for the winner, with extra points for the World Championship events. Up to 3 Ironman events and 2 70.3 events will count to a total of 5 races that you can So sorry, up to 2. You can have, I think, 5 70.3s if you want. I just don't know about that, but up to 3 Ironman was the main detail that I paid attention to. But
Yeah, it says it's got a maximum of 3 full Ironman events, which can be counted. So you're only allowed 3 full Ironman events. The rest has to be topped up with 70.3s. You probably can do all 70.3s, but you're going to get less points for a 70.3. So you could just do 5 70.3s and hope to God that you won all 5 and that no one else did mathematically better with the fulls. And I think they've capped it 3 full Ironman because they want to be careful around health and safety and make sure that people aren't trying to do unrealistic, unhealthy things like racing 5 Ironman flat out in a year.
Like Joe Skipper.
Like Joe Skipper.
5, 6, 7.
Yeah, I mean, they're not altering the pro calendar per se.
Yeah.
They're just designating specific races that are part of this ecosystem, which is going to be the Pro Series. So you'll still have a full pro calendar.
Yep.
Then they'll probably just be more focused when it comes to the broadcast and the social media around these races that are designated in the Pro Series. I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, people probably heard we only briefly touched on it like last week before we dropped in the Hayden interview, but we've both been super high on this. And interestingly, I've had it's contract season for pro athlete sponsorship. So I've been having meetings, a lot of meetings the last week with brands, and it's a big point of discussion. Obviously working with Joe, and a lot of the discussions around Joe is the brands are really excited about this. Like it's interesting we've had the PTO sort of tour announced. We've had the PTO tour the last let's say 2 years, but in earnest, it seems to really be coming next year. There's a lot more enthusiasm from the brands around the Ironman series than it has been about the PTO event. I mean, full transparency, it's still been a struggle to get a lot of the brands actually even interested in including bonuses for the PTO events. Like some of them, like, yeah, we'll do something, or it's similar to a challenge race or a lower tier 70.3 or Ironman, but not sort of, the biggest bonus events are normally Ironman events, world champs, obviously, regional races. They're like, because again, my job's always to push for more. It's not been a hard sell to say we want extra bonuses and things for those Ironman Pro Series. They're just like, hell yes. Like the brands, I think, are very engaged with this. And again, I think it's a sign, right, of we've been quite critical of Ironman in the past. We try to be objective and give praise where it's due, but this to me seems like everybody who works professionally in the sport seems very on board with it. I know there's been some negative comments.
Yeah, I mean, those brands, they are particularly enabled by this announcement. I think because it's a direct line to their customers. The PTO events, as interesting as they are right now, the name PTO doesn't capture the imagination of the age grouper quite as much as the name Ironman.
Yeah.
And so, it's a direct line to the people that are buying products to be triathletes. Because as soon as Ironman announced this series, all of the professional athletes were on social media saying how amazing this was, how pleased they were with this. A lot of the brands were as well. And I can see why, because you've suddenly got this. It's not a competition. The PTO series doesn't have to fight this Ironman series. The two things can coexist quite nicely. And with 3 full Ironman races contributing towards the final points total, it gives a different type of athlete a chance to be in a series that can be just as competitive and just as interesting. And I love it for that.
You say they don't have to compete, and I do sort of wonder if that's 100% true, because we know that the PTO has spoken about not exclusive, but requiring their athletes to compete in the full series. And knowing doing triathlon, the races are all going to be on the same weekends. I can't see the PTO sitting down now and going, "Oh, let's time the calendar."
That is where the competition may come in. That when I say these two series don't have to compete with each other, they don't fucking have to compete with each other.
It's true.
But knowing
But they will.
triathlon, knowing triathlon and just my own experience of the sport, of sitting down and seeing a race name and thinking, oh, I'd like to do that race this year. And then finding out it's on the same weekend as the only other fucking race I've entered this year, and it just seems to be the way that these races sort of converge on weekends that are the same. But if they've got to be pragmatic about it. If you were Ironman and you are the PTO, you have to have an open line of communication like fucking Gorbachev and Kennedy, man.
Oh,
You know,
here
you
we
need
go.
to have
Here
that.
we
You
go.
need to have that
Fucking
secret phone line where you're talking about um disarmament,
there's that ain't
so
happen.
that
I,
these
I,
two these
I
two
cannot see that happening, mate. To be, I can't see that.
but these two series, if they're going to succeed, they have to not be at each other's throats.
do you think they see it this way? I mean, I can understand the PTO scene at that point of view. Right? I can see them going, yeah, okay, we actually need to. I mean, they've been pretty vocal, right, about trying to collaborate the whole time. I wonder whether Ironman see it that they need to, or if Ironman are just we'll just do our thing. You know, we're and I've heard them describe themselves as they are the sun around which the pros
Yeah,
of
yeah.
they circulate,
Well,
right? Like,
absolutely. And I think that's where the sticking point will come. It's whether Iron Man as an entity has got, even in their minds, the necessity for that pragmatism.
mm.
Because they might just think, we've done this now. You've finally done it. We've put a pro series together. We're going to get pros there racing. We're going to improve the broadcast. I don't give a shit who else is racing where.
That's very much what I imagine their opinion to be. Now, the next thing as well, because we have surprised, not surprised. I talked about this a fair bit, and I mean, like what I was sort of touching at the start of the week is the thing that I found quite typical about this announcement was the number of age groupers I've seen coming out going, they better not raise prices. Oh, the age group is going to bear the cost of this. Oh, the poor age grouper, I can't believe that they're going to raise prices. Oh, Ironman have been raising the prices. We keep fun. And I put out, but basically I just said, like, sorry guys, I'm sorry to break it to you. Not everything is about you. Like, just let the pros have this sort of thing. And everyone's like, no, the pros are, age groupers are the soul of the sport. It is all about the age grouper. That was the sort of the conversation. I really firstly think that if you look at the numbers, a $1.7 million bonus probably isn't going to have that big an impact on race entries if they did. Ironman are
No, it's not.
I think the numbers, like, we're not talking about heaps. Ironman are going to put up prize money, race entry, regardless if they did this or not. Like, I think for people to blame this as the reason for increased race entries is hilarious, because Ironman will do it because they can, not because they
Yeah.
need to, because they can. And
The number one driver for inflation is corporate greed, man.
yeah,
You know,
100%.
so prices on your entries are going to have been going up and are going to continue going up. It's not going to be a direct reaction to this increase in bonus, into this creation of a bonus pool for this pro series. This is going to be something where the long term will outweigh any potential harm, which I don't think is much to the age grouper, because ultimately, if they create this professional series and you get more eyes on the sport, they are probably looking at it as a corporation, as a company, from the perspective of, if we can do this and make it work, then we're going to bring more sponsors, proper sponsors into our ecosystem, who are sponsoring a TV event which has got this many viewers and this much reach. So that would blow, if you can get to the sport to that level, it would blow any increase in age group entries out the water.
Well, this is the thing, right? Is like, I really feel like the reality of this is that Ironman aren't doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. Like that, and this is what you're sort of getting to, right? Is they have looked at this and they have run the numbers and they have worked out that there is an ROI on this additional $1.7 million investment they're making. The idea, and I understand this is a brand that people get tattooed on their cars for fuck knows what reason. There's this huge emotional attachment to the brand of Ironman, and we don't like, and I know people are critical of them, but they are run by, like, what is it, an investment fund, an equity fund. Like, they are literally making every decision based on dollars. So this is a calculated move based on potential income. So again, I just feel like
Exactly. It's not what it's not is will increase the prices for age groupers to create $1.7 million, put that in a fund for this pro series, and that's it.
exactly.
What it is a plan for the future to bring more income into the business. It's not something that is done to benefit the professional athletes. It will benefit the professional athletes, that is by osmosis, but it's not sat down and go, what can we do to benefit
help
the
pros?
pros?
Exactly.
What can we do to make age groupers pay more money and piss off our client base? What they've done is go, right, okay, we've got the PTO have created this entity. We need to do something in response to that. How can we do it in a way that is going to stimulate growth and make money for us?
Again, it's funny. Like, again, I'm an age grouper. I race races, and I'm guilty of it every year. Every year I go to enter a race. I'm like, fucking hell, this one's expensive.
Yeah.
Like, I remember this. I thought this was $300 to enter. It's $550 now. And guess what?
Mm.
I still hit register. I still pay the money. And that's the other thing I find where everyone's like, fucking, I can't believe we have to pay more because the pros get finally enough money to like make a decent living. I'll still, and I mean, we've said this a lot, right? We were talking earlier this year around how Ironman having a good, Ironman aren't having a very good time of it. Said it then, I'll say it now. If you guys aren't happy about it, you have the power. You are the customer. If you don't like paying the increased race entries, don't. There are
Mm.
many other alternatives to do an Ironman branded events. They keep charging more because you, me, all of us keep paying them. So I'm probably gonna have a big rant on the Patreon podcast about this, but it's like the pros have a hard time starting to like throw shade at them because of this. But again, something that's
And,
completely out of their control, by the way, I think is
and you
ridiculous.
can't have your cake and eat it either,
Yeah.
because I'm willing to bet the same group of people that came after you, like a bunch of piranhas going after a small fish in the sea.
Big fish, man. Big
Um,
fish. Thank
the
you very
big
much.
fish, yeah. Well,
Thank you.
piranhas. I went with small fish because piranhas only eat
I got
small
called a
things.
wannabe influencer.
Yeah. You're a
Yeah,
straight
but
up
what was
influencer,
it? Oh,
mate.
you
Don't worry
have a
about it. You're a
triathlon
straight up
podcast?
influencer.
You have a triathlon podcast? Oh, you think your opinion matters? You want to be influencer? I'm like, I feel seen. I feel seen.
Anyway, it's you can't have your cake and eat. I'm willing to bet the same group of people that came after you on the internet are people that would sit down at a table over a beer talking triathlon and say, you know what, the pros need more money. They need to grow the sport. Ironman need to have a professional series. So then when Ironman do it, their immediate reaction is my entries is gonna go up and it's gonna cost me more. You can't want the pro experience and therefore the broadcast and spectator experience to be better, to be greater, and then moan when they do the thing that you've asked for, because there's always going to be a moment. You don't just money doesn't just come out of nowhere. There's always going to be a moment they're probably going to take some off their bottom line and reinvest it to make this happen, I would assume. But there always going to be a moment where they put this series together and they have to fund the first one. They're not going to instantly have huge top line sponsors coming in for an unproven broadcast series. What they will do in the future is hope that that's the case.
Exactly right. And I
I feel
mean,
like I'm defending Ironman too.
it's
I'm like,
I feel
this is, I
dirty.
feel
I feel
dirty,
dirty.
mate.
I
Yeah.
mean, the other thing as well, right, is like, well, I don't even know what I feel like we are talking about a lot about the actual like the I guess the business side of it, and I do want to talk a little bit more around the racing side of it. But I think that the point is exactly that. Like, you know, when we see these announcements happen in triathlon, we saw it with the Nice Kona split, and I still don't like the split of the men and women. I do like the change of location. Like, there's a very instantaneous, short term. I don't like this. I feel like, and I understand it, right? For a lot of people, they don't really care about the sport the way that we do. They just like, I just like to do my Ironman races. I like to get my M dot tattoo. It's a very immediate thing, so they can only look at it immediately. I feel like the people who work in the sport, the Ironmans, the PTOs, the Tim Fords, the James Bales, we are looking 3, 5, 10 years down the line. And that's why I think there's probably a different view, right? Like, you know, we know the life cycle of an amateur triathlete is like 2 to 3 years or something like that. So for a lot of the people who are concerned about this, probably by the time it is a fact, it won't even be doing the sport anymore, which is sad. And obviously, I wish it wasn't the case. But I think that's another thing I've just noticed a lot is there is always this immediate outcry without understanding that it is a longer term play. But
Indeed, but it's also worth noting,
yeah,
that triathlon's a huge. The audience is big. The participation is massive. Your tweet on Twitter had 18 responses from 16 people, so it's not a reflection of everybody
oh
out there
no,
in the
definitely
sport.
100%. Again, and you look at there was definitely I had a much more overwhelmingly positive response. It just makes better conversation to.
Yeah, I
to...
did appreciate it. It made me think of Mad Max Fury Road.
What part?
Well, when he goes, "That's bait," you know.
It's a good movie. But look, let's
Yeah,
talk
it's
about
a good film.
the actual racing part of it, because I mean, my first thought with this was like, yes, we're going to see more of the big names race each other more consistently. I mean, I saw a tweet today. I'm in Portugal. It's happening this weekend. They're like, it's a stacked field that I'm in Portugal. And I'm like, oh, really? And it's like Patrick Lang, Peter Heinrich, and that was about it for me. I'm like, Is that what we're going to call it? Is that really a stacked field? Like, no, it's not, of course. And I know I was talking with Joe Skipper post Nice. We all know that Joe didn't have the best race, and because again, we got told by Ironman this was coming in Nice. We were literally walking back to Joe's place with his bike, and a guy from Ironman stopped us, and they sort of had a chat. And he's like, "Yeah, this is what they're talking about." And what Joe was saying, and I completely understand. This is a frustration I'm sure a lot of the athletes have. Is after Joe's bad race in Nice, he was saying, I'm just frustrated that I'm not going to get another shot to race these guys for 12 months. Like it's once every 12 months where he's like, I'm like Joe's racing Florida in a couple of weeks. And he goes, I wish the field was there again. And you look at something like F1, right? Where, and I know I compare F1 a lot to triathlon a lot, but you might crash out one week. Like we saw Lance Stroll crash out in Singapore. He's back the next week and he's racing the same 20 guys. I mean, Lance Stroll is the shittest F1 driver in the sport. He's never going to be fighting for a win, but just an example. But like one bad race, you've still got another, 19, 20, 21 bites of the cherry. Whereas Ironman, particularly Ironman, you get like one. So I'm hoping that we're going to see more of those races. Because again, we talked about Roth this year. Like, what the fucking hell, how good's the Roth field? It was all right. It still wasn't exactly the best field in the world, but because I think we're so used to, I mean, even Ironman this year, it was all right. Wasn't the best field we've seen. Like, yeah. So
I completely agree, and I think we are sort of Stockholm syndromed a little bit into getting, starting to enjoy the meager morsels we're often given.
Yeah.
Really just going, oh, it's a stacked field because there's a couple of people I know in it, or 3 athletes I know in it. Whereas this announcement will stimulate more regular racing, a regularity of racing from those athletes that we know want to go for this bonus money. But also, not only does it create that series of racing and stimulate a regularity from those names, but it also leaves a void behind it, which is almost like the championship compared to the Premier League, where the rest of the pro races have got this sort of feeder system coming into it. And I'm loving it.
That's something, again, we've spoken about quite a lot as well, with this idea of tiered pro races, A tier, B tier, whatever you want to call it. They haven't named it, right? They haven't said that's the case here, but I feel like that's exactly what we're going to see, right? Is your top dogs, your top 20, your top 30 ranked Ironman athletes are probably going to go for those bigger point pro series races for the bonuses. Whereas if you're a beginner pro, or a B tier pro, let's call you, even maybe an A tier pro, you're thinking, well, I still need to make a living. I still want to win a few Ironman races. I might not opt for the pro series races. I might, hone my craft in those non-pro series races, because it's not based on points, right? It's, there's still Ironman races to win. There's still, prize money to be made. And I think what you'll then naturally see is those guys will get the opportunity to shine. They might have more exposure, able to get more sponsors. More sponsors mean they're going to be able to invest more in their sport, improve, and then we might see them in those pro races. And again, I think that's a good thing. I feel like that's one of the fundamental flaws, is there's this very traditional model of triathlon. If you do short course, you do long course. And we're seeing that break recently with the Laidlows, the Ditlevs, the Clement Mignons, these guys who are early 20s, Taylor Knibbs even, but like they're not following that traditional thing. So we need a feeder system for the non-traditional pathway, and even just for the existing pros. But I think that to me is another real positive benefit of this that nobody's really spoken about, is we do suddenly have this ecosystem for different tier pros to sort of exist in and maybe hone their craft a little bit. But yeah, mate, I love it.
And I think it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. It'll be interesting to see who's racing what, who backs themselves to go immediately for the pro, because the problem, not a problem, but the discussion they have to have with themselves and the decisions they need to make are, is it worth my while racing in the pro series for the prize money when I might be coming 7th, I might be coming 8th, I might be coming 10th? Or am I going to get more benefit to myself as an athlete, exposure, learning, if I'm racing in this sort of remaining pro race calendar and I'm finishing 2nd, 3rd, 1st, depending on whichever race it is and whether it suits me as an athlete?
What do you think we're going to see from the broadcast? Do we really think it's going to be next level? Like when
Stockholm syndrome. When you say next level, no, nothing I've read or seen has included anything about an improvement to the broadcast. So at no point has my brain ever gone, this is going to be next level. It's the difference between what the PTO is saying and what Ironman is saying. When the PTO said that they were going to do the Collins Cup, it was very much sold to us as this is going to be the next evolution of triathlon broadcast. It wasn't. They are getting a huge amount better now. With Ironman, no, I haven't really seen anything where they're saying they're going to step the broadcast up on these specific races. But I would be surprised if they didn't put at least a guarantee of broadcasting across their Pro Series races.
That's
Because
the
at the
minimum.
moment, your races come and go, and you don't know what's going to be broadcast and what's not.
I also think that one of the things we've discussed recently was how 70.3 World sort of felt like a bit of a non-event this year. And again, no
Yeah.
disrespect to our winners. We had two, incredible world champions. I think that the inclusion of it's obviously going to be part of it. I think it's going to make this race a bigger deal next year. Like I feel like we're going to see an absolutely stacked field in Topor in December next
Yeah.
year.
And they say that the qualifying for the 70.3 Worlds and the Ironman Worlds isn't going to change, but they'd be fools not to include those two races in this Pro Series, don't you think?
Yeah,
But but thinking about it, what if you didn't qualify for the 70.3 Worlds of the Ironman World Championship? Would it not be more sensible to have those Pro Series races separate from the World Championship races to give those athletes that didn't qualify a chance to still be in that series?
I don't think they. I mean, you look at the PTO, right? That their biggest ranked races are their own events, and you have to qualify for them. You have to be either given a wild card or top 20. So there's a lot of people who are ineligible, and it's sort of I think when we talked about that PTO series, right, we said the same thing. It's sort of self perpetuating because once you're in, it's very hard to get out if you're earning these extra ranking points at their races. I think it's a similar sort of thing, right, where they just want to get every. I mean, if you're in the Pro Series or not, you're going to be doing those big events.
It's
So
true.
it also basically means that they're already going to get the people who want to do that Pro Series in those races, and then the others will do it anyway. So I don't think it'll matter. But look,
No, agreed. I think yeah, they'll have the Ironman World Champs and the 70.3. We've been very full of praise for this, haven't we? So are there any negatives you think
I
off the
think
back of this? Has anything crossed your mind from a negative point of view?
I think the schedule thing. Like, I mean, I'm really feeling the fatigue this year with the calendar. Like, I was talking to several people, being like, "Fucking hell, I can't believe we've got Kona this weekend." Like, it has felt like a long year. And I look at the calendar next year, and I'm just thinking, like, fuck me, PTO series, Ironman series, Super League. What, like, as a fan, are we going to get to maybe a bit of like triathlon fatigue a little bit? We've sort of gone from this not much to maybe too much. As always, you're concerned about the load on the pro athletes, injuries, burnout, those sort of things again. I think they're sort of the real ones. And then again, I think that response from the age groups does make me concerned that if they're already viewing it negatively, is it going to potentially impact the people get on board and supporting it a little bit? But I think overwhelmingly it's a positive thing, mate, to be honest. We have been extremely critical of Ironman's lack of care for the pros for a long time. I think
We
they
have,
deserve
yeah.
I don't think they deserve the praise. Like, give credit where it's
Yeah,
due. I think
agreed.
this is a real positive step and not something that I particularly feel the need to pick apart. I'm sure in a year we'll probably have different thoughts as we see it roll out. But I
Yeah,
think
but
for
I'm
now,
up for it though. I'm so up for it. I'm
100%.
so up for this.
Yeah, mate.
I love it. And I think obviously I'm a bit detached from the age grouper experience.
Mm.
My focus has been on the pro athletes for quite a long time. Plus, I don't race as an age grouper anymore.
Mm.
My athletic endeavors are elsewhere. So I there may be an element of me that's just like whatever. But I'm really pleased for the pro sport. I'm
Yeah.
really pleased for those pro athletes that reached out to me. I've had messages from people saying how pleased they are about this and how up for it they are and how motivated they are by it. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's banging good.
The other little like thing that I'm excited to see as a result of this is I'm very excited to see who goes PTO versus who goes Ironman next year. Like, because
Yeah.
there are gonna
Hey,
be athletes who are gonna have to make a choice,
it's
and I
like
love it.
WWF and WCW, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the day.
I was thinking the NRL versus Super League, or when we had the rugby league in Australia, we had the two sort of separate. That was always good. But look, we've literally spoken about half an hour about this, and I thought it would be a 10-minute conversation because
Hang
we
on,
have.
before we get onto it though, do you think there's a chance this might that competition between the two series it might stimulate and increase appearance fees again?
Yes, 100%.
Nice. That's what we want. That's
Fucking
what we
oath we
want.
do.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we do. I think those PTO conversations around contracts are going to be very different than they thought they were
Yeah,
going to be.
agreed.
But yeah, look, we are going to talk now about what I think was a phenomenal event that happened over the weekend. For so many reasons, the Ironman World Championships in Kona, the first time we've seen a women's only event in Kona happened. with what I think is probably the most stacked field we have seen this year. We were sort of saying at the start, genuinely, this was a stacked field. We have a new Ironman World Champion in Lucy Charles-Barclay. Made me so happy to see Lucy win this race. I watched this. I woke up, I think, about 7 a.m. on the Sunday morning Australia time and watched it from about 100K to the bike right through the finish. I know you were watching it for some of it. Then I think you might have gone to bed because you stopped chatting in our Talking Triathlon group. But mate,
I did. Yeah, I went a little bit quiet because I didn't intend to fall asleep, but I fell asleep and woke up many hours later, fully clothed,
as you do,
and had some admin to do.
what are your thoughts around the race? Give us your initial thoughts.
I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed the depth of the field. We talked about this a lot before the race and how there was depth and how there was a lot of talent, a lot of options that could have taken place. I think I was right, and I like being right when I said that Lucy was going to go for it on the swim and try and push out. I remember saying this to David, that my perspective was that Lucy was just going to go for it. If people could hang on, they could hang on, but she was going to gun it, and she was going to then manage her race from the front and see what developed behind her, but not really have to see it herself, but just see if anybody could catch her. And that's exactly what she did. And she did an amazing job. And I didn't think, because you're always full of like, Lucy Charles-Barclay deserves this. I really want to see her win one. And I didn't think I felt like that
Okay.
until I saw her win one.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, actually, you know what? She fucking earned this, didn't she?
Mm. I'm always happy to put up my hand and say like I'm wrong, and maybe not so much recently, but in the past I've said that I could see Lucy going her career always being a bridesmaid, never the bride, like, you know, being that athlete that sort of misses out between generations. So firstly, super happy to have been proven wrong in the weekend, because I did really think that Lucy deserved this win. And to me, this was a Jan Frodeno 2019-esque performance. She led from the start to the finish, set the course record, just a masterclass of triathlon. Like, I mean, look, it didn't make for the most exciting race. It ultimately, I think it was a bit like, oh, you guys are just doing it. But I think what we've finally seen is 2021 70.3 Worlds in St. George, Lucy convert to Ironman. Because I remember watching that 70 point. You mean people will remember? I couldn't fucking believe it. That run, the 118.5 on that course, the domination. I thought, fucking hell, if she's done this, good luck catching her. And then she's had the injuries, and we noticed a few things come up. So to see her finally put together a similar level performance in Kona and get the win was just like, okay, it's taken a few more years than we maybe expected to, but this is what I think we saw the trajectory looking like for me. And like I said, yeah, I mean, she's such a positive force for the sport. Like, Lucy Charles has the potential to really break through to the mainstream. I think in terms of her profile as an athlete, she's the package deal, mate. And I see this as such a positive for the sport. But yeah, like, I think I've sort of listened to half the chat you had with Dave Torrey Davis, and mate, you're 100% on the money. Like, you literally did. You've predicted it. But let's go through it a little bit, because
Yeah, but I predicted that race, but I did think that Laura Philipp was going to win, so I can't claim all the glory.
Genuinely never thought Laura Philipp would win. I didn't pick
No.
Lucy. I think I had Chelsea. But I mean, firstly, that swim, mate, that fucking swim, 49 something swim, non-wetsuit, put nearly 2 minutes into the pack. She can swim, man. Like, that's a swim.
I know she really can. My last comment, I think you'll notice before I passed out, was I think she might falter on the run, because I was still clinging on to a bit of hope that Laura Philipp was going to win, because I'm a big fan. But then I kind of woke up in the morning and I dreamt that I checked my phone to see who won, and I dreamt that Daniela Ryf had won.
Yeah.
So I spent quite a bit of time just lying in bed, kind of dreaming that Daniela Ryf would run the race. And when I eventually woke up properly and remembered that I hadn't checked my phone, and it was really quite a nice surprise to see that Lucy had won. But yeah, she can swim, can't she? Fuck me, she can swim. She outswam some incredible swimmers.
Like,
you know, it's like
minutes.
the difference between pool swimming and open water swimming kind of difference, you know?
It was phenomenal. And then just never even looked close to it. I genuinely, I really expected Taylor Knibb to at least catch her and probably gap her on the bike. You know, we know that Taylor's such a force, but I mean, I am going to throw a bit of shade here. the fuck was up with Taylor Knibb's bike setup? Like
Yeah.
it was,
The But
oh,
that's kind of what I was saying to David in the preview, is that there was a huge amount of momentum and interest behind her going in, but I couldn't see her dialing in this race first time for a win, because she's brutal, and she's got such natural talent. But what she hasn't done is dialed in all the details, and those details add up. And one of those details was that bike setup.
there's lots of details on that bike that needs to be dialed in. And the only thing I'll counter that is why I am probably a bit surprised by it is it's not like this is the first non-drafting event she's done this year. And
Agreed.
I mean, I just don't understand why. I can understand not being able to hold the most aero position. Like I get that, right? However, like things like she had the stock Trek handlebars. I've got them on my TT bike. She didn't have the between the arm water bottle. She just had a water bottle between her arms. She had a 2x. I mean, I saw Joe commented on it, and there's a lot of things I agree with. Like there was just a lot of like, where's the oversized pulley? Where's the wax chain?
Yeah,
Where's the
all these little details add up. And wasn't she wearing a road helmet?
yeah? Like that's what I mean.
Like,
These weird things that I
and
just look and go, that's
this
it's
is a race where there is some elevation. Don't get me wrong, in Kona, but it is long drags
you don't need a
in
small
the
chain
aero
ring.
position with wind.
Palani
This
is
is
the
not.
only place you would potentially need like, on that course. Palani is the only place you potentially need to shift another small chainring. And guess what? You don't need to shift another small chainring.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly. Yeah,
I looked at it, and that was the one thing where I was like, that is for an athlete that we hear so much about how meticulous she is. I felt like that was a very like I think she left minutes out on that course. Again, good for Lucy that she done that. But that was just one thing I was going okay, like because literally I saw it. And I think that when I was, because again, as I sort of said, I woke up, it was early start in Australia. There was footage on Twitter. I was going through like the highlights, trying to actually sort of get a sense of what happened. And there was footage of Taylor Knibb passing. It turned out it wasn't Lucy, but on their broadcast, it was like she's taken first place. And I was like, oh, so she caught Lucy. So in my head, it was like, so Taylor had ridden up to Lucy, passed Lucy, and then Lucy's put the hammer down, dropped her, and put minutes into it. That's not actually what happened. But yeah, I did remember going, that surprises me. Like I really thought 100% Taylor Knibb was going to get off the bike first place with a decent gap. I just thought she'd get run down by the likes of Chelsea Sodaro, probably Kat Matthews, like those sort of athletes. Didn't happen that way at all. Lucy just fucking made, and again, look at Lucy Charles on the bike. Look at Lucy Charles on the bike. Look at Ruth Astle on the bike. Those
yeah,
athletes who
yeah.
have got these super dialed in
Just
aero position.
rock solid,
Yeah.
rock solid, and like such a difference, and a difference in the way they hold themselves on the bike as well. Because you can have all the gear, you can have the oversized pulleys, you can have the aero helmet, but you can also still not look like you're locked in.
Mm.
You can be shifting backwards and forwards on the saddle a little bit. You can not have your arms in the right position. You can not look like you're comfortable doing a TT. But some of those, like you say, Lucy Charles, Ruth Astle, they look like they are dialed into that bike and comfortable and
Ruth,
solid and practiced.
Ruth's ridiculous, man. Like I saw a photo of Ruth
Yeah.
on the bike, or she was even. I was like, "Fuck, she looks good on a bike." Like you talk, we speak about like Mike Phillips' aero position, Jan, these guys. Ruth Astle looks just like it's like the bike's part of her, mate. Like really, they look like one solid unit. Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, I mean, in terms of so we've had the swim. Lucy's come out. Then some Kat Matthews had a much better swim than I expected. I thought, fucking hell, when I saw her in that position, I thought, okay, this could be something. But from that point on, let's talk about Kat a little bit. Sort of just seemed to go backwards, mate. Like just, I remember going as she had a mechanical, was something wrong. I was looking at the splits, trying to work it out, and I saw she put out a post race, being quite hard on herself, which I don't think is, she's a great athlete. She doesn't need to, she'll come back. We know this, but it sounds like maybe she had some nutritional issues or something because she was like lightheaded, sort of struggling to focus. I was worried she was falling off the bike. So I think the DNF was definitely the smart thing, but we know how much effort she put into this performance. Not happy, but that was a shock for me. I really thought we'd see her up there fighting for the podium, and to see her, off the bike in Harvey, sort of what 2/3 of the way through the bike or halfway through the bike was not the outcome I guess anybody wanted or expected. So hope she's all right.
No, and I don't see any details yet about what exactly what the issue was. But sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and unfortunately, that wasn't her day. But like you say, if she's getting dizzy on the bike, then pulling out of the race is probably the sensible choice, because that is the best way you want to dismount the bike. when you're feeling like that?
I think watching the gaps off the bike was, again, I was surprised at how big some of them were to some of the athletes. I would have expected Anne Haug to probably be a bit closer, because I think, to me, very quickly, when Chelsea was Chelsea, I think, got off the bike 22 minutes down. I thought, okay, Chelsea's probably in for maybe a top 5, but I can't see her. You're good, but I can't see you running 22 minutes at anybody. It quickly became about Anna Haug, about what sort of gap Anne was going to have. And, again, I don't ask me why. Again, I think we're so used to sort of thinking of Anne Haug as not the strongest cyclist. She's a fucking gun cyclist, mate. Number 2 ranked prior to this race. Like, she has worked so much on her bike. I expected her to be closer to the front. I don't know the reason. That was a bit of a surprise for me. I mean, the Chelsea gap was a very big surprise for me. I think seeing Jocelyn McCauley so far was, again, a pleasant surprise for me. And then just seeing the movement in that group and the way that sort of people were hustling and bustling for position was fascinating. But the gaps off the bike into T2, mate, were fucking humongous. Like, there was just
they really
carnage.
were. And I think that was a reflection of the depth and strength in the field, of people not knowing how to respond or what cards to play at certain points. Like you say, Anne Haug, I'm surprised she wasn't closer than she was.
Yeah.
But what a run she put in.
2:48.
To get
ridiculous.
to get herself up to second place and only sort of 3 minutes off the win. So, there's a margin there where, had she been closer, she would have been in striking distance. She doesn't need to be 3 minutes closer. Just because she finished 3 minutes behind, she needs to be closer so that she can get within that point where she starts to mess with the head of the leader.
I found it.
Van Haug's chasing you down. It's hard not to have your head go, I reckon.
It was funny for me because, and I said this in our group chat, but I found like there was a lot of parallels between the men's race in Nice and the women's race in Kona, obviously with different actors, right, or characters, but like, we still had this one person off the front punishing the rest of the field on the bike. I don't think the gaps were quite as extreme as we saw in Nice, but you had Lucy on the front, swim. I think she did the damage most in the swim, and then just fucking was consistent on the bike. But then you had sort of like the Uber biker who, was in a pretty good swim position. And, we expected to see rides to the front, sort of get off the bike in that, this time it was second place in like the Magnus Ditlev-esque, Taylor Knibb-esque sort of role. And then you had the German super runner run through, and can they make up this sort of 10-minute plus gap? Ultimately not, and finish about 3 minutes back from the leader, like the Patrick Lang, what we saw in Nice as well. Like, I feel like there was a lot of similarities.
There were definitely echoes of that, weren't there?
Definitely.
And to the point where logically you knew that Anne wasn't going to make up that time. She was running fast, but she couldn't run that fast. But your head starts to go, but what if? What if Lucy blows? What if she starts to falter? What if she has some kind of injury? Which it turns out she did have a mild injury of some kind in her Achilles.
Yeah. I mean, I will say one thing, because you were talking about how when you were watching the broadcast in Nice, you could tell pretty quickly that Sam wasn't going to get caught. I think because I know that Kona course so well, I think I never thought, like, I think once she sort of saw she was out of the energy lab, when I knew she was, at certain points on the Queen K, I thought that she ain't getting caught now. Like, it's all over here, which was a little bit disappointing. But again, a frustration I had, and, we've just been praising Ironman before, but something that pissed me off. Again, I found the commentary atrocious. I continue to find it atrocious. I'm not that they're bad people, but fuck me, like, getting athletes wrong and stuff. And they literally barely caught, like, you literally caught the tail end of Laura Phillip passing Taylor Knibb for third place. And the commentators, I don't know what the fuck they were watching, but I saw it. I knew what was happening, and they didn't. And that to me was a real frustration. Like, this is one of the, in a race that sort of didn't have that many moves, to miss one of the key movements like that, and then to get it, calling it so wrong, it fucking pissed me off a lot. I'm like, do better. Like, this should have been
something that they really need to get a handle on.
Yeah.
Is that commentary to what's happening on the road? Because, like you say, that moment was an obvious one and an interesting one. And that's the sort of thing in a race like this you really need to maximize on and draw out as much discussion around that moment as possible, because you've got a long time to fill. And I'm hoping that we're going back to the Ironman series, that they start to really get a handle on these things. And also, one more point about the Ironman series, and perhaps if it does bring bigger TV sponsors into that ecosystem, hopefully we'll see less of the in-race promotion that we see at the moment, going on about Hoka, because the only reason they do that is because they need to get as much money out of these little sponsors as possible. I'm not saying Hoka's not a little sponsor, but it ain't TV multi-million-pound audience sponsor.
I
So
could.
hopefully we see less of that, because it really detracts from the experience for me.
It's too much. Like
It is.
I haven't watched a World Championship event for a while because I'm always at them. Oh fuck, man, it was killing me. And we're not
And
talking about
listening
like
to
a quick
Joe
20-second.
on his podcast, and
Yeah,
he's a Hoka athlete,
yeah,
and he's saying it puts you off buying fucking Hokas
yeah.
because it's just
It's but
mind-numbingly obviously an advert.
it's not even just like that stuff's bad enough, but it's also that you see the same ads. It's like a Bob
Yeah.
Babbitt, it's like Breakfast with Bob. At the start, it's the fucking guy in the endless pool. It's the person on the Quintana route. It's the same. You see it so many times that it almost becomes numbing. And like I saw
Mm.
Lucy Charles pulling up a wetsuit 76,000 fucking times. I saw Mikel Eden in his Santini clothes 45,000 times. Like you honestly stop paying attention to it. I don't understand why it needs to be so much. And I mean, okay, I have to give them credit. They at least still had the race action in a tiny little window up in the top corner. But even like when they had Greg Welsh having, Greg, who I still think isn't the best commentator, but he's probably a step up from the others. But then they'd have him talking like, I don't know, fucking, they roll out Mark Allen anytime there's even a hint of a race. Put them in the little window. I don't need to fucking see three people talking about it. Show me the fucking race. It just baffles me that it's like, just show the fucking race. I just want to see the voices are great.
Show the
I
fucking
don't need
race.
to fucking see it. I don't need to. I don't know. Yeah, man. That frustrated me a lot. And like I said, there was some
I
key
mean,
moments.
you've watched cricket, you watch cricket. It's like when you have guests in the Five Live cricket commentary box. You don't have them on screen as opposed to the cricket. You just have the voices talking about the sport that you love, the sport that you're watching.
And you look at, like, let's use cricket again for our American listeners. I know you guys love cricket chat, but they will also, if their ad is going too long and the action's back, they'll cut the ad to go back to the action. Like sport first, promotion second. And it sort of does show the position. But look, we had this race unfolding. We had Lucy at the front. We see her sort of hit Palani. She's coming down Palani Hill and she goes on to win the thing. What are your thoughts watching? I mean, I know you didn't get to watch it live, but I guess watching the replays and stuff. What are your thoughts of seeing Lucy, finally break that tape, finally win that world title, see her sister and her husband Reese, like see the emotion? What was that like for you?
It was good. It really underlined to me the journey that they've been on together as a team.
Yeah,
Because you felt that you I kind of neglected that in my head, which is why I said I was surprised by how pleased I was to see it. Because you kind of thought, well, she's a pro athlete, she's doing her thing, she's just coming second. You forget the weight that a result like this can have on an athlete and a team of people that are trying to achieve it together.
mm.
And you forget the effort and the energy and the commitment it takes to get there and how much they are putting into it and how much of a release that was to see that transpire at the end. Yeah, I was very pleased for her. I was very pleased for her team that she works with, and I was very impressed to see her take the win in the manner that she did.
We spoke about getting a little bit emotional watching Daniela Reef get her 5th title in St. George last year. And I'll be honest, mate, like I felt this one a lot as well. Like, and again, I think you're right. You don't realize, like, I think I saw one of them put up, I think Reese might have put up the post and it was something like, if you fail and fail and fail and fail, try again. Like this, like you keep doing it and you keep falling just a little bit short. Don't give up sort of thing. And like the emotional toll that it must have, like to keep, every year, okay, we talk about Lionel Sanders, right? Lionel Sanders, every time he has a bad race, he's like throws the toys out of the pram. I need to change everything, right? You can understand Lucy Charles's, I guess, instinct or desire to probably do something similar because she's probably felt like she's trying all these different things and every single time it's just fallen a little bit short, but has sort of stayed consistent, has just done the work. And as we pay off, phenomenal, man. Like I really, and again, like Reese is my coach, again, I was so happy to see them have that, that everything come right because, without us really, I'm not trying to have the greatest of all time conversation, but she's quite sneakily now picked up 3 world. She's got the ITU long distance world title. She's got the 70.3 world title. She's got the Ironman world title. Like quite suddenly she's sort of covering all bases a little bit, like which to me is
Yeah.
it's a real mark of excellence, right? And
It really
I,
is. And I think those series of second places kind of masked that a little bit.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? It kind of, because they were such public second places,
yeah,
it masked the excellence that was going on behind the scenes and in other races around the world.
and it also makes me think of Mark Allen, because how many times did Mark Allen come second before he finally won? It was like six times he came
Yeah.
second to Dave Scott,
Yeah.
finally wins it, and then
Something like
goes on
that.
to win 7. Like legitimately, that performance, it's a good time to be a fan of female triathlon, because same thing, it was such a good performance. And look, it's not Sam Laidlow. If he does that, I can't see anybody ever beating him. I don't think it's the case with the women's race. I still think that I don't think it's I see it as an exciting thing, because I suddenly think we have several athletes who are capable of that sort of performance. And if the cards fall a bit differently, or the course is a little bit different, we are getting to a point where I think we could really start to see some exciting racing. I said it. I thought the women's course record was going to go. It did. I think it's going to continue to go for the next few years. Uh,
Yeah.
it's oh
And I
man,
think that the depth of that field is going to stimulate that. I mean, it felt like a bit of a changing of the guard. You talk about similarities with Nice and echoes of Nice. You know, we watched Frodeno have his have not have the race he wanted in Nice, but managed to have that race where he almost did like a parade marathon, soaking up that. And to see Daniela Reef come fifth here, to have a really strong race, strong result, but then to say it's going to be her last full Ironman.
was it
It
her
feels like
first
those
full
two
Ironman or
races.
first or last Kona? That's what I'm not sure about. Is it her last
Well,
Ironman?
her last Kona then. Her
Okay,
last
okay,
Kona.
okay. Do
Yeah.
you think she'll do Nice?
Whether or I
I think
don't know
she'll do
whether she'll
Nice.
do Nice.
I think she'll do
Yeah, she
Nice.
might do Nice, but
I think it would
to
suit
see
her.
her do her final Kona and to bow out of the island like this, it was a strong performance.
Well, let's talk about, and we've obviously spoken about Lucy. I do want to talk about some other athletes, and I think Daniela Reef is a great place to start, because I heard the commentator saying that it was the last Kona, and I'm like, bullshit. No, fucking like, don't say this to me. Don't. And I was trying to go through socials, and I couldn't see anything about it, but it sounds like it's the case. Whether it sticks, I don't know. But again, uh, obviously, I wish. I mean, I think she was my pick for a podium. I would have loved to see her have, I guess, a performance that something that's probably similar to Roth. But I mean, this is the sort of athlete she is, right? We will look at this year and go, "Oh, did Danny? Have we sort of seen the best of Danny?" She set the fucking world record in Roth this year. Like, she's the caliber of athlete that even she has a slightly off year, we still see her do these fucking mind blowing things. I think we're just used to such excellence from her that now that we're not consistently seeing it, it does shake things. But I still think it was a rock solid performance from her. Um,
Yeah.
the other athlete that I want to shout out, because I was so impressed by her performance, and she's a huge, we are huge fans of her, was Skye Moench, mate. Watching
Yeah,
Skye
man.
come absolutely tearing out of T2. And, Skye is probably not the most picturesque runner, but it looks like she's changed the way she runs, because she looked like a fucking runner, mate. And
Yeah, man.
I was looking at it going, who's she going too hard? And they showed, I was like, no, she's just running that well. Like, it was fantastic. She's changed coaches this year. She's working with David Tilbury Davis, who was on last week with you. Whatever they're doing together is working, because Skye was sensational. What a performance from Skye Moench. And again, I
Yeah,
have nothing but praise for
absolutely.
Skye.
She's a podcast favorite, isn't she? We had a quick exchange of messages before the race, and she was very excited by this race. She was excited by the field, and she said she's jealous that she won't get to watch it, because it would be a hell of a race to watch, and to be in it and to finish where she did, very, very impressive, and pleased to see, and hopefully much more to come.
Chelsea Sodaro. Again, I picked her for the win. I thought Chelsea was going to win this thing. I don't know whether it was a bad performance. I'm not sure that it was. I don't like, did the race just unfold the way that we didn't that didn't suit her? Like, I was surprised to see how far back she was on the bike, but I feel like it was still an incredible performance from her. Again, was it second fastest? I think she ran a 2:51 compared to Annie's 2:48.
Mm.
To literally run through so many athletes, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Chelsea's performance. I think she's had a very interesting year post that win last year in Kona. I felt like she'd had a lot of pressure, and she sort of come through it out there. So she looked very positive. I mean, I don't know. I've never spoken a word to Chelsea Sodaro in my life. Do you think it's a performance she's happy with, not happy with? Like, what do you think the thoughts are? What do you think of that performance?
I think a race like this, I mean, she wouldn't, I don't know whether I can't put words in the mouth of whether they should be happy with it or not. But I think as an explainer as to why certain athletes like her didn't get within striking distance and further out the field on that run is because we didn't see the groups come together on the bike like normal, because I think Lucy was pushing so hard at the front that it split the group going into the bike. And then we saw this kind of like everybody seemed to be racing their own race. You weren't seeing athletes taking advantage of being dragged towards the front by powerful cyclists. And I think that she was a victim of that.
There is, again, I don't think it was as bad as last year, but you do wonder, and again, I'm not, how big of a role motorbikes and stuff played in this race a little bit, just because we do see those gaps at these World Championship events always blow out so much on the bike. There is a real advantage getting out first of the water. But one thing, I would put that aside, you do love to see the impact it has on a race when you have that person at the front absolutely ripping it. It's almost, the problem is though, because you want to see it because the impact it has on everybody behind, but then they're normally so far ahead that it's sort of a foregone conclusion who's going to win the race. And I'm not wishing injury on anybody, but I almost wonder if, like, how good would a race be if we saw everybody riding like there's somebody off the front? Let's say there isn't, or let's say, I don't know, it's like a virtual whatever, but that person doesn't win. And then you've got this battle between what we've seen, second through to 10th. Because if, let's take Lucy out of this race, fucking hell, this would have been an event, just like in Nice. That would have been a fucking event. It is interesting to see, and I don't know, because we've sort of said that it's the problem with long distance racing is the gaps are so big, and I'll say I think that's still a case of the race wasn't the most exciting race. Like, it was great, wasn't super exciting, and I still feel like that is sort of a limiting factor for long course triathlon being a super successful broadcast. But again, I don't know how you are, because it's such a positive, right? Like, you need that person pushing the face. It's almost like you need that person to then blow up. We need more of the
I mean, that's the thing.
Who can't run.
It split the race it shredded the race behind it, much like Sam did in Nice.
Exactly.
He shredded the race behind him and he broke everyone's legs. And so it's like chicken and egg, isn't it? Because this race would have been if you suddenly Lucy just disappeared. This race would have been an incredible finish. But would this race have been in the position it was without Lucy out for the front? Well, do you know what I mean? It's like that balance, isn't it?
Well, I said Andrew Starkowitz, and I said the problem is though, you need somebody, because if it's an Andrew Starkowitz, people don't respond because they're not worried, they don't consider him a threat on the run. You need somebody who can do it.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think that's the sort of danger of a Sam Laidlaw, right? And he takes big swings. He either holds on or he's fucking shit. And in Nice Day, he was on. So that's why.
But now it's going to get worse, isn't it? But not worse, but it's going to get better as a viewer experience, because now you've got people in the water going, shit me, Lucy's getting away, Lucy's getting away, Lucy's getting away. They get into T2 and they don't, in this race, they'd have been like, right, we've got to try and catch Lucy, but you never know what she's going to do on the run because she's never won in Kona before. She might falter, she might kill herself on the bike, figuratively speaking, and suffer on the run, and we'll bring her back in. But now they know she can do it. So the fear is going to be there and the desire to catch her is going to be even more. So you're going to have this super battle on the bike, trying to bring her within striking distance in T2. But you're also going to be trying not to carry athletes like Annie Haug or Chelsea Sodaro with you when you try to attack on the bike. That dynamic is very interesting going forward.
I know that one of the big changes Lucy Charles made this year was training at home, like doing all of her preparation for this race in their home gym. Lucy Charles-Barclay, Reece Charles-Barclay, you guys need to be heading to the south of France for a good chunk of time as soon as possible after you've had a little holiday, because Nice ain't Kona. And as much as I love Lucy, she is not the most technically gifted athlete. I still struggle watching her mount and dismount her bike. It's like, come on, Luce, just.
And the road conditions are different in France.
As great an athlete as she is, I cannot see her having things go the same way on that Nice course as things currently stand. If she wants to back up and win that race in Nice, she has a lot of work to do on the bike. It's strong enough. It's just it's the technicality stuff I can see. But as far as that Kona course is concerned, she keeps doing that. I think we could see her win a few of these now.
If I was Lucy,
next
year, I'd focus solely on 3 full Ironman races that are outside of Nice, 2 70.3s, win the biggest bonus possible, go and race Nice, but not really worry about it, then come back and win Kona the next year.
I'd like to see her do both. I mean, I really feel like interestingly, with Lucy Charles, right? We talk, we've said that Chelsea sort of had a bit of pressure this year, and Lucy's been in the spotlight for a long time. I don't think she's going to falter with the added pressure. I was chatting with Reece after the race. He said it's hectic, like a lot more hectic than they expected. But I think she's borne that pressure for a long time. So I don't think that's a factor. Yeah, that's the. I mean, you make a really compelling thing, right? But I think we're getting to a point where it's not going to be enough to just win the Hawaiian one anymore. Like, I think we keep talking about how these discussions go around. What you've got to sort of complete the set. I think it's going to become a thing. That the athletes that I'm very interested to see, the ones who excel on both, and yeah, I would love to see her do both. But at the moment, I feel like there's probably some room for improvement. But I don't know, mate. Anything else? Final thoughts? We've done pretty well. We're about to wrap it up. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the race?
No, not really. Not really about that race. A good race, and I think a good example of how well a women's only day works.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
I really like that. I like we're on the record, both of us saying we wish they hadn't split the men and women this weekend. But I'm very pleased the women have got their own day, as I am pleased the men have got their own day, because it creates an ability to focus solely on one race and the race that you're watching without cutting backwards and forwards. And that was always to the detriment of the women's race, in my opinion, because they would focus on the front of the men's race. And only when the men had really finished would you get the entirety of the women's race coming through. So it's really great, I think, to see the women have that dedicated time in the spotlight.
I absolutely loved having the women's only race. Like, I thought it was fantastic. At no point did I think, oh, this is missing the men. I think that's the beautiful thing about this sport in particular, is that it stands on its own. I feel like I've said it, the women's field was better. I was probably more excited about watching the women's race than I was about the men's race. I just wish it was, same location, same weekend, whatever. I mean, even chatting with Joe, right? He was like, we're talking about Kona next year. And he's like, it sucks the women won't be there. And what he was saying, and it's true, it's like, I wish we raced on the Thursday this time and they raced on the Saturday, because he goes, how good would it be to like sit down, have a few beers, be out on the course, actually watch them race, because my race is done. And I think
it would be. Now, I listened to an interview with Jimmy Riccatello across the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
But I listened to an interview with him anyway. And he was saying that the problem they were having with the 2 days is the stress it has on the resources and the ability of any particular location, but specifically he was talking about Hawaii, to be able to do that because of the road closures involved for 2 days and the volunteers required for 2 days. Is a huge undertaking. Yep. To volunteer at an Ironman is one thing, but to volunteer at an Ironman 2 days in a row is an even bigger thing.
Exhausting,
yeah. So I'm not sure we'll see that happen in the near future.
I think so.
But
not in Kona anyway.
I think just the women's only race can only be a good thing, and long may that continue.
I did think watching it, there was a lot less spectators on course, which I think was a bit upsetting. Watching Lucy coming down Leahy, it was empty. And I mean, even on a Leahy drive, weren't that many people out there. I think that'll change.
Yeah, I suppose that's to be expected, isn't it? Because you're going to have different travel dynamics if it's just
some positives. The highest finish rate. There was every single female finished the swim. And I think there's a lot of criticism saying, oh, because it rolls so deep, there's going to be a huge DNF rate, one of the lowest DNF rates ever.
And one of the biggest female fields at the Ironman World Championships ever, because they had more women there racing than they ever had before.
I also have to, on that note, like my Instagram feed was full of people that I follow, women who I follow being there, and they were all loving it. And like that's the beauty of it, mate. Like, there's all these people getting to experience this special thing in the sport. So I thought it was super positive. And yeah, look, we need to wrap this up, mate. We're about to go and do our bonus episode. We're going to give them some, I guess, behind the scenes thoughts around the Kona race, much like we did around the Nice race. Got plenty of stuff to talk about. Actually, we literally cannot talk on this podcast. So if you want to hear our unedited thoughts and some of the more controversial things we've heard whispers about and stuff, head to patreon.com/talking triathlon. Jimbo, if they want to find out, I know I've just said it, I've sort of stole your thunder a little bit, but I'm stalling to give you time to bring up the little speech you need to give. Take it away.
Jesus, hang on a second. Something about patrons and it's not even going to the right page now.
Where can people find us? If you want to find out more, head to patreon.com.
If you want to find out more about us, go to patreon.com/talking triathlon. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's talktriathlon.com.
It is.
No, it's not. It's at Talk Triathlon.
Yeah.
If you want to find us on Facebook, it's Talking
Nope,
Triathlon.
we're
If
not
you
on
want to,
Facebook.
we're not
We're
on
not on
Facebook.
Facebook.
Are we not on Facebook?
We're not, mate. Who uses Facebook? It's for old people. Instagram, Talking Triathlon. I'm at tford14 on Instagram. You're at bale.james85 on Instagram. All that good stuff. If you want to, please head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe on YouTube. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscriptions. We're not far off. If you want to give us thoughts around the episode, that's the best place to do it. We love to engage in the conversations on YouTube.
That's the best place for it, really. But if you join the Patreon group, we'll also add you to the ecosystem. So you'll be part of the WhatsApp group. You'll join us in all the other socials. And we do a fair amount of chatting on the WhatsApp group almost daily. Eh?
And again, during the race, it was going off. And like I said, we're literally about to record our bonus episode, which is exclusive for our Patreon supporters. We've also got talkingtriathlon@gmail.com if you want to send us any emails. But that's it, Jimbo. A pleasure. We are going to hit stop and you're going to instantly hit record on the next one. I'll talk to you in a second. But for everybody else, we'll be back next week. See you later, Jimbo.
Cheerio.